divide my career in 3 phases. The early part when I was in Bombay and schooling in Bombay, it was more like the movie that you see on the screen here, where everything was good and fine. And then the beginning of my career was more like doing sales and just learning about business, learning, just meeting people, interacting with them and selling to customers. And just when you thought that, okay, like at the end of Rocket Singh, where he basically starts a business and you think that everything's now going to be great guns, the final part of it, the entrepreneurship part of it was more like running into the Wild West. The transition has not been as smooth or as easy as envisaged, where you start off and then your career keeps progressing. I think when you're running a business, it's more like a Wild West where you're fighting different problems every day. Okay, but I still think sales, starting my career in sales was absolutely the best decision that I made. I've just listed down a few reasons why I think so. So one is, in sales, you learn a lot of soft skills, which are transferable at any stage of your career or to any industry, right? The 4 key skills that I really look at, which I learned from sales, one is negotiation. I think every sales professional basically becomes good at negotiations. The second thing is listening to customers. The next part is trust building, because no matter what you do, people only buy from people or brands that they actually trust, right? And a salesperson is probably the most important vehicle to communicate the trust to any customer. And the last part is relationship building. So while trust can get you a buy-in once, at the end of the day, you have to build a great relationship for continued business in the long term. The second reason I really think sales is a great place to start is it gives you a sense of fulfillment and pride, right? On one hand, you're basically offering customers a great solution, which is solving a problem for them. Internally, what is happening is you're validating the team's effort. There's a lot of effort that actually goes into building a product, right? Whether it's a software product or a real product. So when you actually sell that product in the market, you're actually validating a lot of the team's effort, right? Third, you're making the company's promoters happy because you're getting in revenue. And lastly, you're going to be loved by all your colleagues, because at the end of the day, the sales team is what is helping people keep their jobs. Another great aspect about a sales career is the money, excitement, and adventure, right? No other function as such is so closely linked to performance. So yeah, if you're doing great at sales, there's a great opportunity for you to make a lot of money. Obviously, there's a lot of excitement and adventure in the journey as well. But I think the really key part of being in sales is you understand how to dissect a business, because ultimately, kisi business mein kya hota hai? People are going to pay you for something. So you know exactly what is the business. Ye dhanda kya hai? Log kiske liye paisa de rahe hain, right? Ya fir log kiske liye kyun humko paisa nahi de rahe, right? So you straight away you're able to, so to say, just paint a very clear picture of what the business actually is. Also, a sales career is a great part to leadership. In all the organizations that I've worked, ultimately people who've moved up the ladder and taken top positions have experience in sales. So I think congratulations to everyone who's pursued this path. And another reason why I think it's a great decision for all of you is that you've decided to participate in the process of upskilling your career, right? A lot of people stagnate, but I think it's a great decision that all of you all have joined Juno School of Business and decided to upskill yourself. Okay, so I'll just give a short summary of what I learned at these different places. In sales, in Pepsi, the first thing that I learned is that sales must be fun. When I joined Pepsi, I thought, kya hai yaar, roz subah utھ ke ek truck mein baithna, right? And you're selling the same sugared water to people every day. But when I actually joined the organization, it was completely different, right? It was just a riot, and it was really exciting. The way it was made actually fun is, say for example, when I'm sitting, I go ahead and sit in the truck as well. So every person who sits in the truck, we laid out a punching bag, okay, which was a red punching bag with a Coca-Cola logo on it. So everybody who works at Pepsi, before you get into the truck, you actually punch that bag and you actually kick that bag, and then you get into the truck. And then whenever there was a new launch, say for example, in 2000, when I actually joined this organization, we just launched Mountain Dew, right? everybody would come dressed completely in, green, right? So we used to have green days where everything the entire warehouse was actually painted green. All of us were wearing a special green uniform. So I think there are different ways. I think what we need to ensure is that whenever you're doing sales, you need to make it fun. I think sales is never boring. The second thing that I learned is enthusiasm and passion. As executives in Pepsi, all of us used to spot the Pepsi uniform every day, right? Whether it was a Sunday, we used to work on Sundays as well, but everybody used to spot the Pepsi uniform. And there's an instant connection when that happens. So even if I go to the market and find somebody else wearing a Pepsi uniform, right? There is a certain camaraderie that actually gets built just by people seeing you in that uniform, and somebody who's worked at Pepsi earlier. So the second thing, my second most important learning from Pepsi is that always create an environment of enthusiasm and passion. If you're going to work with colleagues who don't share the same enthusiasm and passion, I think probably you're in the wrong job. Sales you have to surround yourself with enthusiastic people. And the third thing that I learned in Pepsi is the entire organization at Pepsi was aligned to support the frontline team, which is to support the frontline sales force, which meant that every month, at least once a month, we would find even the CEO or people from the accounts team going onto the route, right? So they would jump into a truck and spend the entire day with the route agent. We used to call the truck driver who actually sells on every route. He's called a route agent. They used to spend the entire day actually selling themselves. So what happens in such a scenario is, many times within an organization, we get lost in really petty things, right? कि ये हिसाब नहीं दिया, ये petty cash submit नहीं किया, ऐसा क्यों कर रहे हो, ये sales वाले हमेशा बहुत वो है. I think there is a certain compassion that gets built and understanding that gets built in terms of what the sales people are doing. How is this company actually making money, right? So in any organization, I think it's very important that everything is aligned towards finally driving sales and supporting the frontline sales team. Yeah, that was my key learning from Pepsi. But the moment I decided to move to an ad agency, I realized how difficult things really were, right? At Pepsi, you had the brand supporting you. But when you work with a news ad agency, which has no brand in the market, you realize that the only way for you to actually succeed is to differentiate, right? If you're not going to be able to differentiate your offering, there's no reason why a customer should buy you, right? And yeah, differentiate or die was my key motto then. And I contributed usually towards making Resonant Design an agency which delivers designer digital experiences. Back then in 2004, 2005, very few people were actually offering this. And that was also my foray into how I understood the online space, right? And so yeah, for any salesperson, it's important to understand, how do you differentiate your product? Many may have the benefit of actually working for a really large brand, but when you don't have that benefit, you really have to understand the product at its core and understand what makes you different, right? And or otherwise you're not going to be able to survive. Moving to sales in a digital world, I mean, the early part, like I said, phase one was actually working at Pepsi and an agency, which was, and back then really digital was not at its core. I mean, digital was not a popular industry, so to say. Thereafter is when I moved into different online businesses. So the popular belief now is that what many people believe that what role can a salesperson play in an online business? At the end of the day, an online business or a SaaS tool, it's effectively about creating the product and then you put it out in the market and use tools such as Instagram marketing, Facebook marketing, and digital marketing to drive consumers to your platform, right? And they effectively pay online as well. There's a big question mark in terms of how can sales contribute to online businesses, right? And in my experience, coming from a sales background, I have realized, this is only the half truth, right? In terms of that businesses are built on Instagram, Facebook, and digital. The reality is almost all successful businesses online have been a result of pivots. So Instagram started as something else. Myntra started as something else. Flipkart was only doing books earlier. Effectively, all businesses then finally change till they find something which is called a product market fit, right? Now, how do you actually pivot and find a product market fit? That only happens when you listen to what the customer wants. And I think that's the primary value that a salesperson can bring to the organization. That once your product is out there in the market and it's not working, it's only the salesperson or somebody who's very close to the customer who can tell you, okay, boss, ye nahi chal raha hai. This is what customers actually want, right? And this is what we should be building. Most people ignore this and they decide to, build businesses on their whim. You could say more on instinct. But I think a salesperson can bridge that gap wherein they can actually bring you real insights from the ground in terms of what is happening. Yeah. I'll give you some examples of how I've seen this manifest, right? So when I started my online business, one of them was called Engrave. Okay. And what we used to do is we used to offer online personalized gifts wherein people would actually upload a product, upload their picture. We would engrave it on a piece of wood and send it out. It was very popular for birthdays and anniversaries. Now, in order to market the product, what we used to do is, apart from selling online and doing online advertising, we started participating in different flea markets. So there's a really popular flea market in Bombay that happens, which is called Kala Ghoda Arts Festival. So for the first couple of years, it's a 10-day event wherein you have lakhs of people coming in and there are different people who set up stalls on the street. You would have seen it in different flea markets as well. So that's what we used to do. And that experience actually changed the way I did business, because over a period of 10 days, you end up meeting at least 7,000 to 8,000 different people, right? Who come to your stall and actually interact with you. And in the course of those 7,000 to 8,000 conversations that you have over 10 days, you actually understand in terms of that what do people want. So give you a simple example. Like I said, we were engraving pictures on a wooden plaque. So I had somebody coming from who used to work at the HR of a BPO. She came to me and actually said, can I have my employee's photo out here and just write employee of the year? Or could I have my employee's photo and say, okay, congratulations on completing 5 years, right? And I felt it was a great idea. Instead of just doing photos, we should use these as certificates or plaques inside any company, right? And that's how I ventured into the awards and trophies business. Naturally, what happens is once you venture into that space, the company is going to come back to you after a year and say, "Abhi ek saal ye wala kar liya, abhi kuch naya award or trophy banate." And so that's how, we just decided to start a stream of awards and trophies business. I don't think that business would have started if I had not participated in an offline event and heard directly from a customer. The other thing is, at the same event, there were people who actually came and said, "Ki ye aapka photo frame jaisa bana hua hai, aap isko ek lamba kar do, right? Instead of having like a 5 inches by 7 inches size, why don't you have a 9 inches by 3 inches size? And instead of a photograph, just have my name on it. And could you give me a nameplate?" Again, that insight led to me starting a nameplate business on Engrave, which became really successful, and which is what led to the birth of Housenama eventually, right? So I think only by if I was not doing sales and I was not selling directly to the customer, I would not have divined these insights. So for any digital business, whether it's a software business or a B2C business or a B2B business, I think it's very important to listen to what customers have to say. And for that, flea markets and exhibitions are great for B2C companies. And I think for B2B organizations, you always have events that are happening around the year. You'll have marketing events that happen. You'll have technology events that happen. I think it's very important that if you're working at an organization, you push your management to actually participate in these offline events. They are a fantastic source of ideas. And I mean, all of you are in sales. I'm sure you understand that nothing works like speaking to a customer, right? Also, if you're in the sales business and digital business, I think the second most important thing is that you should spend some time in the support function of the company, right? Because these events that are going to happen are going to be kind of periodic events. It's going to happen once in a quarter or once in 6 months. But the support team actually speaks to the customer on a day-to-day basis, right? if the customer faces an issue in basically logging in, or the customer finds that, okay, has some questions related to the product, right? All of these will be known to the support function. So if you're not able to participate in the support function, it's important that you ask a support function to send you the transcripts, at least. And it's in the initial period, it's very important for you to actually read these transcripts, see the problems that the customer face, and prepare for it. Because when you go and pitch to somebody, you would probably already know what questions are going to come to you, right? And the end result of doing this role in the support function is you will understand two things. Okay, one is, if the customer has purchased from you, you need to understand why did they choose you versus the others, right? And the second thing is, if they are not choosing you, why did they not choose you, right? Now, in the case where physical meeting is not possible, the only way to discern this or actually identify this is, speaking to the customer over support. And when you understand the answers to these two questions, you'll have enough insights and patterns. You'll be able to, when you listen to 100 people, you'll have insights and patterns that can actually shape the entire business, right? So apart from being a seller and a listener, I think a sales person can also be a great contributor to defining what the business should be, and basically laying out the contours of what it should look like. Okay. The last part of any sales stack, right? I think if you're participating in any digital businesses, I think email. So you have offline listening, you can participate in support function, but at the end of the day, you need to drive revenue to the business. And I think the starting point in any digital business to reach out to somebody is actually email. And it's important to understand the different tools of the trade when it comes to email. Like I told you, we had the Engrave Awards business, right? That business we moved to doing close to around 40 lakh rupees every month, purely on the base of email. So we were participating in events initially, but the entire business was driven by a single person just doing email every day in and day out. And that's when I realized that, yeah, I mean, for any organization, now every business that I do, I use email as a tool, very important tool for sales. So one is, you have lead generation. So I think it's very important for people to learn and basically learn tools such as Clearbit and Sales Navigator, right? And what happens is, the way to go about it is, initially, you will have a list of customers in the organization. It's very important to first map them, right? So what we did is, we had customers who were buying from us, but we did not know exactly who was buying from us. So I created an Excel sheet, wrote down, just fill in all the emails of customers buying. Just take a sample size of say 100, 150 people, right? Put them in an Excel sheet, fill in things like, okay, fine, they work at which organization, what is the size of the organization, what is the industry, what is the geography. And I mean, it's very easy for you to do an analysis of that and then identify who's the customer who's exactly buying from you, right? So in case of Engrave Awards, our awards and trophies, we realized that a lot of companies in the United States were actually ordering from us. And these were all organizations in the size who were under 50 people, and the other segment was people between 100 to 200. And if I dig deeper into it, that's when I understand that, okay, fine, somebody's buying awards and trophies online, right? Typically, they are making a purchase of 30,000 rupees, 40,000 rupees, $500 to $1,000. And I realized that, okay, fine, if the order volume was much larger, say, for example, you had to buy 1,000 trophies, nobody's going to do it online, right? Because there's going to be a central procurement, which is going to happen. There are going to be multiple stakeholders involved. But when you work in small teams of 50 or say 10 to 50, most people are empowered to take a decision, okay, go and make a purchase. So I think it's very important for you to identify who your ideal customer is. And once you've identified, that's when you start using these tools like Clearbit and Sales Navigator to create a list of leads who actually match that profile. Okay. The second part that we do usually is we set up email drip campaigns. Okay. And I would highly recommend a tool called Lemlist. Okay. Because what happens is, when you start sending out, say, 100 emails every day or 200 emails every day on an automated basis, your emails are going to be marked as spam, right? So that's where you have tools such as Lemlist, which actually solve for that problem. what it does is, initially when you enter any organization, you activate Lemlist on your email, you connect it with Lemlist. What it starts doing is it starts sending out dummy emails to people, and those dummy emails are then responded to by them. This is completely automated. So your email ID is then identified as somebody which is high engagement and with sense. And then Lemlist tells you, okay, fine. Now we've done so many interactions and we keep interacting with people. You can send out 50 emails initially, right? And all of these land in customer inboxes. None of them go to the spam folder. None of them actually go into. So I use a tool called Lemlist to actually first warm up my email and then set up a drip campaign. By drip campaign, I mean, all of you know that, okay, fine, you send out really effective. Lemlist also allows you to do an A/B test kind of thing, wherein you set up different emails. It could be, with two follow-up emails, or it could be 3 follow-up emails, and give people reasons to actually make a purchase from you. And what we've done, what we did with Engrave Awards is we set up a drip campaign of 100 people on a daily basis, right? And anybody who would interact with us, say today or tomorrow, actually then moved on to a separate list altogether, or to our newsletters. And anybody who had not interacted with us would continue to be on the Lemlist campaign. And over a period of time, we saw that close to around 25,000 people move from a Lemlist campaign to our newsletter campaign. So the reason people will interact with you, say, for example, they see that they like what you're offering, right? But I might not have a trophy requirement. I might not require that product at that point of time. Okay. So they're going to come back in the future and say, okay, fine, this is great. I'll get back to you at a future point in time. So that's when we move them to a newsletter campaign, wherein on the newsletter, what we would do is any new work that we did, any trophy that we did for a marquee client, say, for example, we got to work with on the Kabaddi World Cup. We would make sure that an emailer goes out saying that, okay, fine, we created the trophy for the Kabaddi World Cup, right? And this is how we went about that process. Or we would work extensively with IIM jobs, right? So we would put out a campaign saying that, okay, fine, in this week we work with IIM. So we used to showcase all the work that we did through our newsletters. What it also does is, many times when you start showcasing clients for different use cases, many times it plants ideas in the customer's head, right? Saying that, acha, ye hum bhi kar sakte apne company ke liye. Oh, I never knew that this tool could be used for this particular purpose. So I think email is a great tool for you to be at the top of the customer's mind, especially in a digital world, right? Where you're not going to meet people. And the last thing that I would really recommend people to use, anybody working in an online business, is use LinkedIn very effectively. Okay. You have your profile and feed where you can build thought leadership. At the end of the day, it's a game of trust. Whenever you're working with an organization, people need to like you and they need to trust you to be able to buy from you, right? And any conversation that I have, say, for example, even in an interview, I just get few minutes to actually sell who I am and what I am, right? But people at the end of the day, they're going to Google for you and find your LinkedIn profile. They're going to read through 15, 20 things that you've posted, right? And start developing trust towards you, saying that, okay, fine, this guy actually talks a lot of sense, right? And he's somebody I should be doing business with. So it's very important for you to use your LinkedIn feed and profile effectively if you want to build a successful sales career. So I would, first thing that I would say, whether it is sales or marketing or customer support or any role that you're doing, I think to stand out, firstly, don't limit yourself to only that role, right? So if you're a salesperson, it should not be that, okay, fine, main sirf sales karunga. You have to take interest in the entire business. I'll just give you a small example. When I used to work at Pepsi, right? And I would go from shop to shop. We had this product called Aquafina, which is mineral water. And all shopkeepers used to tell me, yaar, isme kholte hai na, to nariyal pani ka smell aata hai. Theek hai? And so that was a question that actually came to me. Now, Aquafina was being sold for years, right? And most salespeople were confronted with the sales question, but nobody cared to answer. And so I got the opportunity to go to the factory few months later, right? And the first thing that I had a list of questions कि यार ये हमारे क्राउन, हमारा जो पेप्सी का क्राउन है इसमें ये रस्ट क्यों लग जाता है और कोक वाले में क्यों नहीं लगता? हम कोई एक्वाफीना का बॉटल खोलता है, so why does it have this peculiar coconut water smell? And when I took back the answers from the factory to the sales team, to the ground, and I explained it to everybody who was confronted with the same question, I was immediately, in the coming newsletter, they had this thing called Men in Blue, where outstanding salespeople were actually identified. Just for a simple task like this, I was put in that list, saying that, okay, fine, Nimish is an upcoming, one of the best salespeople in Bombay. So that only happened because I took interest beyond my sales role, right? It's important for you to take a holistic perspective and understand every part of the business. And once you do that, you will no longer be considered mediocre. Yeah? You'll be noticed in the organization. I think digital is great for any business. I don't think there is any business today that is non-digital, right? Whether it's a restaurant or a sandwich wala on the street, everybody's gone digital, right? Everybody has online payments. Everybody's offering home delivery through an app. So I think digital is a great place for any new business, because traditionally the model is that say, for example, you launch a toothpaste, right? Traditionally the model has always been आपने एक नया business चालू किया toothpaste बनाने का, ठीक है? आपके पास एक distributor होगा across the city. आप उसको product बेचोगे, वो जाके दुकान में बेचेगा, because you won't start with a team of 100 people to actually go on the ground. So you'll have a sales channel, and to be able to reach different parts of the country, you'll have to have a sales channel. You'll have to have a distribution system across the country, which is not easy for a brand for anybody to do who's starting out, right? As a result, it used to take 15-20 years to build a business. आप पहले एक city में करोगे, then you will succeed out there, then you will open in another city. It'll take you 15-20 years to actually get your brand known. What digital has done is you're now able to reach people on day one, right, from customers, as a result of which the D2C space is booming. Most people have realized that, okay, fine, now the time taken to build a brand is not 20 years anymore. With digital, you can crash that timeline to 5 years. So we've seen so many companies being built which have hit 100 crore figure in a span of 5 years of starting. I think ऐसा तो नहीं है आपने प्रोडक्ट बनाया और फिर आप सोचते हो ये किसको बेचूंगा. I think it's very important that when you start a business, you think about that question first. In terms of, if I'm making a new product, what is different in my product, right? And whom is it targeting? So for example, today in one of the, we decided I have a brand called Hygiva, okay, which sells masks, okay, and we launched pretty late. I mean, when COVID started, there were like dozens of mask companies selling masks on Amazon. We launched probably 6 months after everybody else launched, and it still became a bestseller on Amazon, right? The reason was that I personally felt the need that, okay, fine, जो भी mask मिल रहे हैं, disposable mask मिल रहे हैं, वो white color में है या blue color में है, right? Today, if I'm going to office, I might want to match it with my clothes. So our only differentiator, right, for relevant, obviously we try to identify a great product, but our only differentiator was color. We used to make sure that in a pack of 50 that you actually buy, we had 10 white, 10 blue, 10 green, 10 yellow, 10 pink, right? And that was our only differentiator, and we launched in the market. So it's not like I launched the product and then I decided कि अभी इसके customers कैसे ढूंढूं. I first realized that there is a gap, right? This is how I can be different, and then you put yourself out in the market. So I think you solve that first before deciding to solve कि अब मैं customer कैसे ढूंढूं. I see, again, every domain will have their own, nuances. But what I would say, for example, if you're a field executive, there is a particular locality probably that you must be catering to, right? So you could create an email list using, you have Google Business, you have Just Dial, and you have IndiaMart, whichever is the relevant platform which gives you all the information locally, and build an email list in terms of all your potential clients, right? So one is you could reach out to them on email. The second thing is customers who are already onboarded, right? You could set up a newsletter for them, like I said, and keep them updated in terms of what's new in your industry, right? And build a reputation for yourself as somebody who's trying to help them rather than somebody who's only trying to sell to them.